Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I would like to start by introducing myself. Hello, my name is Cassie Sayaprina, and I am a business advisor here at CallSource. I am also joined by one of my fellow business advisors, Tiffany Tran.
Hi everyone.
So today is part 3 of our webinar series, and we're going to be focusing on managing business constraints. We would like this to be an interactive webinar, so please feel free to raise your hand in the dashboard or type a question in the question box at the end during our Q&A session. And if you haven't done so already, feel free to call into today's meeting. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded, and we will have that recording available to you once we're finished. So let's get started. So the concept of managing constraints was not my idea, so giving credit where credit is due, it was originally presented in The Goal, a process of ongoing improvement by Mr. Goldratt. This book actually provides insight into the constraints faced by a manufacturing company, but the concept could be applied to your business as well. So the theory of constraints breaks down into identifying the most important limiting factor, or the constraint, that stands in the way of achieving a goal, and then systematically improving that constraint until it is no longer a limiting factor. And this can be summed up in a quote by Goldratt. The capacity of your practice is equal to the capacity of its bottlenecks. There is a lot of data that is available to you, so knowing how to separate the metrics that are responsible for growth from all other data clarifies what needs to be managed. Each growth metric can be a constraining point in a business, and knowing how to implement a process of ongoing improvement in the business, you can identify the most important constraint that stands in the way of achieving your goal. In order to achieve higher results, whether in your personal life or business, you need to set goals, right? A business cannot manage for improvement without understanding where you already are finding success and where there is some opportunity. So first, let's dive into business growth. Generating business growth could be likened to a manufacturing assembly line. Each unit produced needs to be processed by a series of machines before the end goal is achieved. Each is dependent on the next. The machine with the smallest capacity dictates the number of units produced. So in this case, C is the constraint point in the process and dictates that productivity. Only 2 units will be produced even though D has a capacity of 10 units. Even maximizing A and B to their fullest potential is still only going to yield 2 units. Why is this? The total process can only be improved when the constraint is improved and when that bottleneck is managed. Your business is facing a similar process in generating or manufacturing sales and ultimately your business's growth. Organizational performance is dictated by these roadblocks. These are restrictions that prevent your business from maximizing its performance and reaching its goals. Constraints can involve people, supplies, information, equipment, or even policies, and can be internal or external to your organization. Take this model and apply it to any other aspect of your business. It could be for call handlers. What if C in this model was a call handler that was rude to a potential patient? Now that would definitely impact your organization's performance. Remember, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So these are restrictions that prevent your business from maximizing its performance and reaching its goals. Constraints can involve a few of those things as we mentioned, and the main ones that we are going to be looking into today are your marketing capacity, or the ability to generate leads in order to acquire new patients, your conversion capacity, or setting as many appointments as possible, and your scheduling capacity, or the scheduling availability of the office. This essentially determines or limits the size of your business. So generating leads is the first step in acquiring new patients. Businesses cannot grow beyond the number of leads generated. So here's an example. A business's goal is to gain 100 new patients per month, and they're generating 50 new leads per month. So first and foremost, are enough prospects being generated to meet sales and growth objectives? Obviously, the answer here is no. As the old saying goes, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. A business cannot grow beyond the number of leads generated. In this example, the business's maximum capacity for growth is limited to 50 new patients. The business will fall short of its goal of 100 new patients, even if conversion, scheduling, and acquisition are all operating perfectly. So in this scenario, the business's marketing operates as a constraint to their growth. Increasing or improving its marketing campaigns will be necessary in order to grow revenue. So let's look how to manage this constraint. Can additional prospects be generated? Well, of course. So how can you achieve this? The first thing that could be done is additional marketing. Now, this would need to be carefully measured for effectiveness. Business leaders would want to avoid throwing money at the problem. Marketing is expensive, as we all know, and additional marketing may include more frequent mailers, new mediums, or even an improved online presence. You would want to also look into what has been successful or unsuccessful in the past to make sure you don't make the same mistake unnecessarily and waste money on that marketing effort. So our reporting at CallSource can help to provide insight into what has worked and what hasn't worked. And you can contact your CallSource representative to see which reports will be the most beneficial for you in this area. Another way to gain additional prospects would be to utilize for the most effective method of generating prospects, which is referrals from your existing patients. It doesn't hurt to ask a happy patient if they know anyone else who would benefit from your service. And lastly, you could try to manage the constraint with improved marketing. This could be as simple as altering a marketing message to elicit a stronger response. This allows for a new marketing effort without spending any additional money in new marketing sources. So I'd like to ask all of you, I'm going to launch a poll here. Of these that we've talked about, in which ways have you gotten more prospects? How have you generated some new prospects in your business? And you could feel free to check off as many as you'd like. And I'll give you just a moment there to do that. Okay, so we are complete here. So it looks like most of you do utilize referrals the most, which is great because you're not spending any money to get referrals, right? But maybe relying only on referrals may not be getting you the marketing that you need if you're trying to get more prospects. So at this time, I'm going to pass off to Tiffany, who's on here with us, to give a real-world example of how some improved marketing can help. So if you need to do that in addition to asking for referrals, Tiffany's going to provide us with this real-world example. So take it away, Tiffany.
Thanks, Cassie. So as Cassie mentioned, I have a client who I was working with on a regular basis on improving some of their constraints. The first thing we realized was that their team was performing at a high level, but they still weren't reaching their business goals. So then we asked, what can we do to generate more business? Can additional prospects be generated from what we're already doing? By supplying this client with marketing transparency, the CallSource reports really helped them ensure that their good advertising spend isn't thrown behind underperforming marketing tactics. So we were trying to see exactly what we could put their marketing dollars behind in order to ensure performance. The client really utilized the CallSource reports and trending data to understand and maximize their overall marketing investment return. The graph you're looking at is representative of the client's prospect call volume for their newspaper and website campaigns. These were the two highest yielding advertisements for them. So we were able to verify that and verify that they were both strong performers. But when we looked at this, we wanted to determine how much a quality lead costs them across each campaign. That'll help them and allow you to weigh your return on investment of your overall marketing dollars. Through our metrics, we identified that their newspaper campaign wasn't returning as strong of a result as it had in the past. So we really needed to look at this and needed to learn what works best and what doesn't, and the only way to understand this is by testing the waters by allocating some of your budget to these new avenues. Everyone really hates spending money, but spending money the right way is going to be essential to create growth. The client ultimately made the decision to reallocate the money that they were spending on their newspaper campaign and invest in their website as noted here in the graph. This allowed the client to start generating more leads without spending more on marketing. After they made this switch, they quickly found out that their investment had paid off, as you can see here. We're now reviewing the current metrics in order to create new growth opportunities and continue to improve. CallSource is here to be able to tell you what campaigns are bringing in the highest quality leads. You can use this information to reallocate your marketing dollars like this client did here from the marketing that's underperforming. Feel free to reach out to your designated CallSource representative to dive further into your specific data and identify possible capacity constraints and opportunities for improvement that would be specific to your business's needs. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back off to Cassie now.
Thanks so much, Tiffany. Yeah, so that's a great example on how to improve marketing without spending any more money. Maybe you don't have the money to spend, which is why you're relying more on referrals. So you could also try to, reallocate your marketing dollars without spending more money to gain better revenue here, as we see. So besides marketing to gain new potential patients, though, perhaps that's not a way you're going to do that, another question you can ask yourself as a business leader is if you have any additional prospective patients in your marketplace. Sometimes the answer may be no. Maybe you've saturated the marketplace. So if that is the case, what's the next step? Is an expanded territory something that may work for you? Now, this would give you access to brand new prospective patients, but there is risk involved. So that's a big decision not to be taken lightly. And there are additional expenses which may not be feasible for everyone. So if that's not something that you see feasible for yourself, what else can you do in this situation? Well, the alternative would be accepting the constraint. There may be other ways you can improve, and investing in additional marketing or expanding a territory for more leads will be futile and a wasted effort if the conversion constraint is really what needs to be managed. So I have another question to pose to you. How many of you consistently check on your office's appointment setting conversion rate? And I will give you all a moment to answer that as well. So how often do you know how well your front office staff is booking appointments? Okay, let's share this here. It looks like everyone voted and we are just about half and half. So no big majority, but for those of you who are checking on a consistent basis, great. I'm giving you kudos. Those of you who don't, we definitely want to encourage you to do this on a regular basis. Check with your CallSource representative on how to do that, and we are going to talk about why that is important. And it is very important for you to know if conversion may in fact be a constraint for you. Maybe you think you need to do more marketing when really you need to work on your appointment setting in the office. So let's look at an example for this for a hearing office. Let's say you are already getting 150 marketing leads per month, but your front office staff is only converting 52% of those calls into appointments. So that's going to give you 78 appointments. If half of those end up in sales, based on an industry average of $3,000, you'd be generating $117,000. But let's look at this again and say that you improve your appointment conversion rate to 72%. So this now gives you 108 appointments. Again, if half of those turn into sales, that would give you 54 sales and $162,000 in revenue. So that's $45,000 more dollars without spending any additional marketing cost. So obviously, if you aren't even booking all the appointments that you're getting from your marketing, it's going to be a waste of money to throw more dollars in that bucket for marketing. So this is an indication that below average appointment setting is a growth constraint for your office. So how do you manage that constraint? Well, achieving stronger results may require an accompanying change in culture. With a performance-based culture, each team member will understand his or her role and how that role impacts the success of your organization. Does your front office staff know their role in the sales cycle is to set appointments? Does the front office staff have any specific goals? And do they know what your business goals are? Call handler skills are likely lacking in one or more areas, and there is potential for training opportunities. This means that efforts to increase marketing capacity, such as expanding your territory, will not be maximized. Identify opportunities to coach and train your call handlers. If you need assistance in coaching your staff, please reach out to your business advisor and they can provide more insight into our call coaching product as well. And you want to create a performance-based culture, as I mentioned. Establish goals for your call handlers, review call recordings with them, and provide constructive feedback. So we are going to delve further into how to establish goals and effectively communicate with your team in future webinars, so definitely be on the lookout for those as well. So lastly, let's take a brief look into a few other possible capacity constraints. First is your scheduling capacity. So the ability to book appointments for prospects or customers seeking service is obviously essential to growing a business. Again, scheduling availability essentially determines or limits the size of your business. Businesses that reach their maximum scheduling capacity must turn away patients sometimes. This allows you the luxury of being selective with appointments you take, but unscheduled prospects may be personally lost patients. Keep in mind, are you able to open another office, maybe stay open for longer hours or hire additional personnel? If so, that's great. That's obviously one way for you to overcome your scheduling capacity, but maybe scheduling is not an issue for you. So what else may be a constraint? Some other capacity constraints a business may face are patient acquisition capacity. And this is the ability to turn a prospect who booked an appointment into a patient. Just because the patient booked an appointment does not guarantee they're going to pay for any additional services. Some people may even cancel an appointment. So struggling to turn appointments into actual patients represents a growth constraint for you. Make sure to track your sales cycle to see if this is an issue. Last would be operational capacity. This is a limitation within the organization. Time may be an operational constraint that limits business growth. An owner may only have so much time to generate marketing campaigns or train their call handlers, which may lead to more investment. So this is not something that we can measure directly with our metrics, but it is something to keep in mind when dealing with constraints. And I know we covered a lot today regarding constraints, but try not to be overwhelmed. Remember, you should try to pinpoint your bottlenecks and focus on one constraint at a time. It will not work if you try to focus on all of them at once. Think of what is most important or pertinent constraint at the time. Once you fix or accept that constraint, then you can move on to the next. Your business is never going to be perfect, and there will always be improvements to be made. So with that being said, this concludes my presentation on managing constraints, and I'm going to open the floor to any questions that you may have. So if you dialed in, feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you, or you may type your question into the question box.
Hey Cassie, this is Tiffany. I had a question.
Sure.
Time resources are one example of an operational constraint. So how can CallSource help owners or leaders struggling with time management?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, we are here to make your lives easier. That's why we have live analysts that listen to those calls that come in for you and score them to see which marketing efforts are working best, how your call handlers are performing, and how well they're converting those leads from your marketing into appointments. So definitely talk to your CallSource representative to see which reports are most beneficial for you, depending on which constraint you need to be working on. And we could even have those reports scheduled to come to your email on a regular basis if you don't have time to log into this reporting platform regularly, although we would love to see you log in regularly as well. So it looks like I had a question come into the chat box as well from Tim. So what if we need help in our marketing as well as with setting appointments? So that's a great question. As I mentioned, first of all, I would recommend focusing on one of these at a time. If you say you're having trouble with both, as I mentioned earlier, you don't want to spend more money on marketing if you're still struggling with setting appointments of potential prospects that you are already getting, right? So in this case, I'd say to keep working or start working on coaching and training your team to handle phone calls better and set more appointments. And again, you'll need to log in and view some of our reports to see a baseline of how well you are setting appointments, since I know about half of you said you were not. And so once you believe that you are setting every possible opportunity, or at least most, then you could work on marketing to get better and more possible patients calling in. So it looks like that is all the questions that we had come in. And thank you all. This is going to conclude the Q&A segment. And please keep an eye out for emails for our next webinar, which, as you can see up here, is Set Yourself Up for Success, How to Use CallSource to Better Your Business. And that is going to be on June 20th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all so much for joining.